dads, have your kids been doing this, turning their backs and refusing to talk till you take them to Knott's? You may wonder why. My assistant will demonstrate. They have rides, fast, fun, exciting rides. Shows like Snoopy's all-new Ice Spectacular. And besides, now you get to see me there live. And Snoopy and Charlie Brown too, of course. My advice? Take your kids to Knott's, or never see their faces again.
This episode of Cue the Podcast is sponsored in part by Voyage to the Iron Reef. That's right, folks. If you want one of the most underwhelming shooter dark rides of all time, look no further than Voyage to the Iron Reef. Voyage to the Iron Reef, where the most impressive physical set piece is literally just a tunnel. Voyage to the Iron Reef. PS2 graphics probably look better than this. Voyage to the Iron Reef. It's got a queue and a backstory so complicated that we're not even covering it on this episode that's all about Knott's Berry Farm queues. It's that bad. Voyage to the Iron Reef. Go ride a far superior version of it about 2 hours away at Magic Mountain in the form of Justice League. Because seriously, folks, Voyage to the Iron Reef is just underwhelming as hell. But regardless, you can check it out today at Knott's Berry Farm, California. All right, Armchair Imagineers, here.
And Jacob Wild too.
And that's right, we are back after a brief hiatus after the first 6 episodes of Cue the Podcast. We are back for episode 7, which I just like to call Knott's Berry Queues.
Woo!
All right, so Jacob, this is a very special occurrence here, my friend, because this is the first time that Cue the Podcast has ventured outside of Disneyland Park. And I'm pretty excited for this. This is going to be the first park-wide discussion. We're kind of broadening our horizons a bit instead of because we've done on Cue the Podcast, we did a Fantasyland episode once before. We did Fantasyland before, and that was fun. But now we're covering a full park. We're not going to get to every queue in this park because, frankly, a lot of the queues are just like, just kind of like a lot of the rides in this park are flat rides. There's not really many different ways you can do a queue for a flat ride. It's just kind of switchbacks. But, Jacob, I think Knott's does have a variety of really interesting cues to choose from when you know where to look for them. And more importantly, it's got history.
Plus, we'll also be going over some of the scarier editions.
Yes. So basically how we're going to work this, folks, is we're going to talk about the coasters first, because I feel like the coasters will go by pretty quick. And then we'll get into the really big historical stuff with Calico, the 2 Calico rides with Calico Mine Ride, Calico Log Ride. And then we will kind of take a deep dive into the Calico River Rapids, which is the newest and possibly the best queue in the whole park. And then we're going to end out, we're not going to go through every queue at Knott's Berry Farm, but we're definitely going to talk about the 2 queues / pre-shows for the 2 new 2019 mazes, those being Waxworks and then Origins, The Curse of Calico. And we're going to highlight those specifically because I feel like they both have very excellent pre-shows in different ways. All right, so first of all, before we start, Jacob, overall thoughts about Knott's Berry Farm, because this was kind of like an anchor point to our SoCal trip.
It was a fun place. I mean, the rides don't stack up to the coasters. Don't stack up to Magic Mountain, although I'm sure a few places do, except the ones in my 2 parks. But I think what it likes in parks, that definitely makes up for an atmosphere and theming, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate that it's a park where, of course, I feel like we went on days where the ghost town actors weren't at their A game. And by ghost town actors, I certainly don't mean the actors in Scary Farm. I mean like the people roaming around ghost town. Although we did encounter a couple good ones, but we had a really really awkward. I've told this before, but I've told this story before. But Jacob, oh my God, we went into the schoolhouse, and that must have been one of the most awkward encounters I've ever had with a cast member in all my years of going to theme parks.
Yep.
Oh, that was so cringe. That was so cringe.
That it was.
Would you like to tell them what happened?
So basically, I went in to ask them about Sarah Marshall. The thing going on for Scary Farm, like the witch in the backstory for Scary Farm this year.
And in my heart of hearts, in my optimistic little heart, I would have hoped that, like, oh, it's the school teacher. So, my perfect scenario would be like the school teacher kind of like darts his eyes like back and forth. It's like, Sarah Marshall? Well, we don't talk about Sarah Marshall or something like that. You know what I mean? But instead, Jacob, what happened?
He had no idea what we were talking about and wondered what we. And then we decided to ask him, like, can you tell us about the schoolhouse? And they basically said that it's an actual small schoolhouse that they transported here. The books are authentic, and that's about it.
Yeah, and the whole time I just got the genuine impression like he seemed pissed off that we wanted to actually talk to him. It was very unpleasant.
I mean, what else was he going to be doing in there?
I know, right?
Seriously.
I don't know, man. And then we talked to did we ever talk to Sad-Eye Joe?
Yeah, and he didn't even know about Sarah Marshall either.
Which, you know what? Honestly, if the Sad-Eye Joe actor at Scary Farm, we should have talked to Sad-Eye Joe at Scary Farm, Jacob. That was a missed opportunity because he basically curses you out at Scary Farm.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, Jacob, every time I go to Knott's, I always feel like I didn't get enough boysenberry stuff.
And we got quite a bit of boysenberry stuff.
Jacob, they have boysenberry corn dogs, for fuck's sake. I didn't know about boysenberry corn dogs. That sounds amazing.
Somehow to me that just doesn't sound too appetizing.
Corn dogs are already sweet and savory with the honey corn dogs.
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, it just didn't seem like it would go too well together. It's like it'd be kind of like covering a corn dog in grape jelly.
That sounds amazing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just more of a sweet, savory kind of guy.
Maybe.
And then I really wanted to get a boysenberry funnel cake, but I just didn't have room for it. Okay, but that's Knott's in a nutshell. Great atmosphere. Scary Farm. Oh my God, we could do a whole podcast about Scary Farm, Jacob. I think we should at some point.
Basically, we can summarize it as I got jump scared, you didn't.
You know what? I didn't even care that I didn't get jump scared because I was so impressed with like the consistency of the storytelling throughout the park.
I mean, obviously I was too, but it can be basically summarized that way though. Like I got all the jump scares and you didn't.
Yeah. But just the whole concept of Sarah Marshall and the witch hunt, I mean, it basically extended its way throughout the entire park, I would say, with the exception of the Carnival Boardwalk area. But, I mean, hell, the Carnival Boardwalk was, like, pretty well done in its own right, so I didn't even mind that it was a little disconnected.
Yeah.
And if anything, Carnival Boardwalk kind of fits in line with, like, sort of, like, the freak show, like, like devil make hair attitude that the Hanging has right around the corner. So if you think about it in terms of transitions, it fits, I guess. Anyways.
Yep. On to the cues.
All right, so Jacob, without further ado, it's time to cue
the podcast.
All right, so Jacob, the first thing we're going to talk about is the roller coasters. We're going to kind of go in order of like least impressive to most impressive. And honestly, there's not a lot to talk about with most of these things. I would honestly say probably the worst queue for a coaster in the whole park might be Silver Bullet.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to it anyway.
I mean, other than the fact that there is a reference to Jacob's Mining Company at the start of it.
Yeah, I even took a picture of myself in front of it.
That was fun. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the quintessential like just switchbacks, staircase, station, and it's not even worth making a Chip and Dale staircase joke about.
Yeah, because you don't even go downstairs.
Well, you do go downstairs. Do you not go downstairs? How do you get down to the?
Well, you don't go downstairs on the way up. Well, I guess you don't either, but you know what I mean.
Well, you go downstairs after you get off the ride, but I digress. Anyways, so yeah, not really much to talk about with Silver Bullet.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that connects with the rest of the park is that mining thing.
Yeah. I remember Ezra and I waited like 45 minutes in line for it at Scary Farm, and that was a rough wait.
I believe it.
Okay, but a Ghost Town coaster that does have some pretty good theming to it, at least at the start, is Ghost Rider. Like, honestly, Jacob, I don't know how they would do this, but I kind of wish they would somehow just be able to enclose that entire long walkway into the station, because I really do love that opening cave that you walk into, and I wish there was more of it.
I mean, that was pretty cool way to get to the actual area, considering like the actual place is like a wooden cabin area.
Yeah, and might I just say, there's a reason why I don't wait in the Ghost Rider line if it goes down the stairs, because even just filling up the second story of Ghost Rider, let alone filling up the bottom level of Ghost Rider, that queue is just really boring because it's just a lot of long switchbacks. Not really anything going on there at all.
Not really.
But like I said, at least with Ghost Rider, you do have I think the best section of the queue is that first section where not only do you have that cavern, which is really cool, but then you also have that walkway that kind of goes in between like the opening section of Ghost Rider, the pre-lift section, and then you also have on the other side, you have the pan for gold section. And Jacob, I don't know, like I don't think we got any this trip, but I have had some really good interactions with the Pan for Gold cast members as I've been walking through that queue. Specifically on my last trip, I had Ghost Rider kind of like opened up unexpectedly when it was scheduled to close. And so as I was walking through the queue, I was like very excitedly like, oh man, this was rumored to be closed. And then the Pan for Gold cast member, and this is what I love about Ghost Town cast members in general. He just kind of turned around and he's like, well, now, I wouldn't believe every rumor you hear around these parts. It was just like, and that's the thing. It's like, I feel like Ghost Town cast members at their best, it's almost like being in a Ren fair, which is why the school teacher just sucked. Anyways, okay, let's see. Pony Express, the one positive thing I can say about the Pony Express queue is that it's not stairs, it's a ramp.
You go up the ramp, then you go down the ramp.
Yeah, but still, it's nice that it's a nice easy walk up to that station.
Plus, I like the logo design of the Pony Express.
It is. Cedar Fair does a very, very good job with logos for their coasters, just in general. That's something that they're really good at.
Seems that way, yeah.
All right, let's see. Honestly, the queue for Monty really isn't anything, but I just kind of love how old-fashioned that station is.
It's kind of similar, kind of built in the same area as the, what's the other one? Jaguar?
Yeah, Jaguar, yeah.
Which I think is actually probably a better queue, because it actually has like more of a theme to it.
Well, Jaguar is probably one of the best queues in the park, I would say.
Probably.
So yeah, let's get to Jaguar. Then we have the two most extreme rides in the park to get to, but those don't really have much theming to it. But Jaguar, yes, I would say probably before Calico River Rapids, this might have been the best queue in the park.
Yeah, it's like built out of looks like it's built out of a Mayan Central American ruins.
What I like about this is that I am pretty sure that there's no actual show building element to this queue. I'm pretty sure that the whole thing is actually built into that actual pyramid as you walk in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So for example, with Indiana Jones at Disneyland, it's a much different, like it's way different because you know how Indiana Jones, you have the temple exterior that you walk into. But then Jacob, after like the first room of that queue, you're like walking underneath the railroad tracks. You're going into this huge show building. Like it's not the actual temple exterior. And with Jaguar, I actually really do feel like they did find a way to make that queue mostly fit into the confines of the temple itself.
One of the few places in the park that does that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and I do really like how there's a couple really cool elements to the Jaguar queue. I like how low lit it is.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you the vibe that you've entered like an abandoned Central American pyramid.
Hmm. Once again, it's a series of ramps and not a staircase, so that's nice. That's very ADA friendly.
Very few very few places I've been on actually have ramps instead of stairs.
Yeah, of course, I feel like most coasters have elevators these days for wheelchairs. But yeah, it is nice to just have a ramp so you don't have to deal with loading into an elevator and all that.
Yep.
I believe with Jaguar, there's a few sections where there's like, I don't know, like diamonds and rubies and stuff like that in the cave. Can't really follow it too much. Doesn't really have a lot of a story to it, but like I said, I do think my favorite part is just the low lighting in there.
Yep. Like I said, it gives off the ambience.
And then when you get into the station, it's honestly probably one of the weaker parts of the queue. It's still like the theming's still there. It's just like you have that light flooding into the queue, so it's not nearly as ambient as it could be.
Breaking the illusion.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Another thing that I like about Jaguar, I feel like Jaguar is kind of like a relatively tame ride, and it's pretty boring overall. But I do like my two favorite elements of Jaguar are the part where you go through the loop on Montezuma's Revenge, and I've actually been on it where where you go through the loop as the Montezuma car is going around the loop, and that's a really cool moment if you can get it. It's
Yep.
kind of like one of those Zen coaster moments.
I can see
And
that. Even though
and then go ahead.
sorry, go on.
And then I really like the moment on Jaguar. It's like pretty soon after the first drop where you actually go through the top of the temple and there's that little like opening like encavement thing that you go through.
Yep.
Another creative way to use that temple exterior. All right. And then lastly we have hang time and accelerator, which honestly, like accelerator, it's just a lawn. Like it's not anything at all.
I mean, Accelerator really. I mean, it's just like you basically just again. I think that one had ramp, like a bit of a switchback and some stairs, but mostly like thing leading
It
up to
doesn't
it.
have stairs actually. It's another ramp.
Yeah, it's a ramp and it's like painted like it was out of the 1960s.
Honestly, with Accelerator though, I feel like the fun of waiting in that line is just watching the launches itself.
Yeah, considering you can see the lights that signal takeoff.
Right. And you can see like the mechanisms working, and the launch itself is really impressive because of how fast it accelerates.
Yeah, is it? If that counts as part of the queue, then definitely you can see all that from while you're waiting and while you're even walking up there, and you can see when they're about to take up by the counting down, and then woo!
Hmm. And on another note, that was easily my favorite part of the Shadowlands queue, was actually getting that view behind the main spike on Accelerator. I got a couple pretty cool pictures at angle.
Yep. Definitely quite a different place at night.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then finally Hang Time. It's not like a great queue, but I give it some credit because they have there's a few things that I really like about it. One, I love that I don't know if you noticed this, but I love that the basically the room where they keep the train storage room is themed to a surf shack. I love that little detail.
I didn't actually see that.
Yeah. And then just in general, there's like a sandy beach as you go through the queue, and there's surfboards along the walls. It's not much, but it's more effort than usual. It's certainly more effort than something like Accelerator.
Plus, it's kind of like in that general area that's like themed after 60s.
Right.
Like there's like several 60s diners close by.
Yeah. So that makes it it fits in pretty well. I love the logo for Hang Time. I love the surfboard that kind of looms over the entrance.
Definitely goes in with the whole hanging theme.
Oh yeah. And I also really like that you walk under the ride's best piece of airtime.
I mean the hanging?
No. I mean that little double down that you go down.
Oh right, yeah.
Like that's right over the attraction sign.
And then you see it just whizzing right on by as it goes on by right above you.
Mm-hmm. I still have yet to get a night ride on this thing, and it's pretty frustrating. I think the reason why I didn't go for a night ride on it when we went to Scary Farm is just because it was it felt like the lighting package was a little bit hit or miss when it was going or not, because we saw it just dark for large parts of the night. And it's like, if I get a night ride on it, I want a night ride with that lighting package, especially if I'm waiting in a Scary Farm line for like an hour. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I'd be disappointed if I didn't get that lighting package.
I know what you mean.
All right. So I think that's it for the coasters, right? Are there any that I'm forgetting, Jacob?
I mean, we're still need to go over the rides, like the flat rides, but I think we went over all the coasters.
Well, I don't think we're going to go over the flat rides because I haven't done a majority of the flat rides in the park ever, to tell you the truth. Like, as I get older, I'm just not a flat ride guy. And B, like I said, I just don't think that the flat rides, the queues really offer much of anything.
Well, then that just leaves the river rapids and the log ride.
And the Calico mine ride, of course.
Yes.
But I don't do tricks, okay? I ain't no trained dog.
Yeah, okay. Hey, what is your name? Hey, what's your name?
My name is Sad Eye Joe. Don't wear it out, okay?
Sad Eye Joe?
I said don't wear it out.
All right, I'll try not to.
Okay, so yeah, let's transition to the Calico mine ride itself, Jacob. This to me is the creme de la creme, the queue of all queues. It's like the grandbaby of immersive queue theming.
All right.
I love it so much. It's not like a wonderful queue, don't get me wrong. It's not like a queue where you're gonna walk out and be like, oh man, the queue is better than the ride itself. Looking at you, Mission Breakout. But it is historically, we would not have queues like that if it weren't for this queue itself. Jacob, do you know the story? Did I tell you the story, or are you still not that familiar with it?
You might have mentioned it, but it's probably better coming from you than me.
All right, so essentially the story of it is that out front of the Calico Mine ride, famously, there are a series of switchbacks probably takes about 10, 15 minutes to get through those switchbacks. Not a terrible wait, not a bad wait at all. And then as you go through that sign that says, the Calico Mine Company. By the way, I like the fact that on the Calico Mine Ride, the big sign doesn't say Calico Mine Ride, it just says the Calico Mine Company. I think that sets the stage really well. It's like some next level immersive theming that you didn't really see employed at theme parks for decades after that. Like, it was pretty ahead of its time in the way it set the stage like that. And kind of let your imagination do the work to gleam that it was the Calico Mine Ride just through that sign. Anyways, so Walt Disney himself, he goes through this queue, he goes through the switchbacks, and he's like, all right, I'm about to get up to the ride, no big deal. Lo and behold, he sees Jacob, he sees round the corner, hidden from plain view, hidden from the view of the switchbacks. Oh shit, I've still got like a good 45 minutes of line here, because I've got to go like up and down and around these rocks, and then into the station, and the station itself has a couple switchbacks. And Jacob, I don't know if the ride was running 1 or 2 trains at the time, but you and I did wait in a 1-train operation ride, and that was a pretty painful wait. We had to wait about 3 cycles, and it ended up lasting about a half hour. This ride is not it loads slowly, and it's a long ride, so if it's running 1 train, and you have to wait a couple cycles to get on it, the wait can add up pretty fast. Yep. So, yeah, just historically speaking, Walt Disney, when he got off the ride, he went to Bud Hurlbut, the designer, and he was like, "You son of a bitch, Bud, you tricked me." Every time I tell that story, I just literally, just in my mind, just imagine Walt calling Bud Hurlbut a son of a bitch.
Is that actually what he called him, or?
Oh, no, I don't think so. It's just the way I like to tell it.
I mean, Walt wasn't always the nicest kind of Uncle Walt that we know him as, so it's probably, for all we know, he probably called him worse.
But Jacob, for all the flaws that this ride has in terms of like the loading system being slow, and it really needs 2 trains for the wait to be tolerable. Like, when it's running 2 trains, it's fine. It's very efficient. It's just when it's not running 2 trains that it becomes problematic. But what do you think of just like the overall, like, it set the stage, like, rides like, let's say, for example, Smugglers Run, which uses rock work, or even Splash Mountain. Like, we would not have those types of queues that go like into the rock work and stuff without this. So what do you think of that, just kind of from a historical point of view?
I can see where it would have some influence. I think the queues are probably handled better at those particular rides. I can see where there'd be I can see where the influence comes from.
I mean, one of the things that I really like about this queue in particular is I like that little stream that runs down the side of the queue, and how there's nothing barricading you from the stream, so you can just kind of like dip your toes in it. Like, it feels very authentic.
Yeah, I remember that. You could even feel the cool breeze off of it.
Yeah, right. And I don't know, just this is probably like the nerdiest sentiment that I've ever expressed on Q the podcast so far in 7 episodes, but I just like being surrounded by historic fake rocks. Like, I'm just like, I'm just in that queue, and I'm just like, these fake rocks are history, man. These fake rocks changed the industry.
And now we have petrified trees.
Yep. Oh, and of course, I would say probably still the creme de la creme of, rock work being used in a theme park setting, and you've also experienced this, so you can attest to it, is probably Flight of Passage.
And that one's floating rocks.
Yeah, even outside of the floating rocks, even just like the big mountain that you go into that isn't specifically floating, but just the way that they design it with all the, all the alien plant life and everything, and how you can just like look out over it and get a great view of the floating mountains. It's just, that queue is just phenomenal.
Yeah, but that'll have to be its own separate episode later on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that queue and Indiana Jones at Disneyland are like two of the ones that we're gonna have to like save for separate for like special occasions.
Yeah, because I remember I went there like maybe even a couple weeks after it opened.
Oh dear, that's right. Yeah, you did.
I remember it's like maybe like a week, like I forget the exact day like when Pandora opened, but it was like not too long afterwards because they were still allowing like VIP access to it. Like like if you like stayed at one of the resort hotels, you could go there at night.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I actually got to go to Pandora at night, like past midnight. Okay, we're kind of trailing off of Knott's. So
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about Calico Mine Ride that I don't think enough people give it credit for is while it is true that the show building itself is rather obvious, it's basically the big blue building on the backside of Hang Time. Um, when you're inside the ride, the illusion of the rockwork never breaks. The whole inside of that ride is just fake rock from top to bottom. And I love that about that ride. And Jacob, you and I got one hell of a ride on this thing at 2 o'clock in the morning at Scary Farm.
yep. Yeah, but basically just as the park was closing.
Yeah, we even heard like the Sarah Marshall announcement, like this night might have come to an end, but I'll be back to terrorize Ghost Town yet again, for you have not seen the last of Sarah Marshall. That was really cool, and that happened like right before we went into the mine. And I don't know, just riding the ride, like this ride has just like stuck with me. That last ride that we went on, because riding the ride like with a near empty car and the guy operating the train just leaving the spiel on, the pre-recorded spiel, like the way that it's meant to be enjoyed. All the timing was just perfect. How we went out on that trestle at like 2:15 in the morning and the park was just dead, completely dead. I don't know. That was just an atmospheric as fuck ride, man.
Yep.
And for my money, Calico Mine Ride is the best ride at Knott's.
I can see why.
I mean, at the very least, I consider it to be the Knott's equivalent to Pirates of the Caribbean.
Fair comparison.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the sister attraction to the Calico Mine Ride that is not going to take as long to talk about, which is the Timber Mountain log ride. Now, you only experienced Timber Mountain as Halloween Hootenanny during Scary Farm, but I think the queue really isn't changed all that much at all during Halloween Hootenanny, with the exception of the exterior of the mountain itself. With the giant face on the barn as you go up the lift hill and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the skull on the side of the mountain.
Right. But other than that, it's pretty much like the same queue. So I do. There's several elements of this queue that I do really like. I like the kinetic energy of as you're walking up to this ride, you see the runoff from the drop, and you get like really close to that turnaround. That's always been a point where I just kind of like to stand and people watch, and then really one of the only notable features of this queue is the fact that you go behind the waterfall, aka the backside of water. Because really, it's just kind of like the queue itself is almost like when I map it out in my head, it's almost kind of like a half a rectangle. It just kind of like goes around the rock work, goes behind the waterfall, and then just ends up at the loading station. So, like I said, there's not much to it. I don't think there's as much at play in terms of the optical illusion as there is at Calico Mine Ride. I feel like Calico Mine Ride is more effective at hiding the queue than the log ride is. But like I said, the log ride isn't really meant to hide the queue. It's more meant to just be a long kind of like turnaround into the queue. And it does its job pretty well.
Yeah, it does. Like, so probably, as you said, not as well as the mine cars.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I think for my money, the best queue in the park is the most new attraction, which is the Calico River Rapids. An attraction that pretty much blew away my expectations. I really love this thing. I don't think enough people are talking about how good it is.
The queue is definitely like one of the higher points of that ride.
I mean, what I love about the queue is that you basically get a preview of the whole ride and the sightlines along it. So it kind of gets you excited to see the different sights along the ride.
You can even hear the wolf on it.
Yeah, yeah. You can see the wolf. You get a really good view of the wolf.
Yep. Can you see the guy shooting at you?
I don't think you can. I think that's on the other side of a wall, which I think is a good choice because that's probably my favorite set piece in the whole ride. You can definitely see the woodpecker. I don't think you can see the grizzly bear because I think the grizzly bear is on a path, as you go to Pony Express, you see that path with the grizzly bear. Let's see, what else can you see? I think you can see the chicken coop. So, it does do a good job of like kind of blending stuff that you can see along the ride, and then also like hiding certain elements of the ride.
The best part though is the cabin.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The cabin is just first of all, one of my favorite elements of the cabin is how big it looks from the lift hill when you're going back up into the loading station. And just, yeah, inside the cabin, it just feels very rustic. There's that big bearskin blanket on the bed. Just the whole thing has a very naturalistic, lived-in log cabin feel to it. And we've never waited in the actual cabin, but I imagine waiting in there probably isn't that bad because it's nice and shaded and there's a lot to look at.
Yeah, it's a very homey feeling.
Oh yeah. I don't know necessarily per se what the cabin has to do with the story of the attraction. Like, I don't know if it's the cabin that the Calico miners stayed in or what. Like, I wish that was a little bit more clear. I don't really know what it has to do with the rest of the ride, but it's cool. And like I said, it does look cool when you get to the top of that lift hill.
Sometimes all you need is just to have it look cool.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I do wish there was a little bit more foreshadowing to in the queue. I'm not sure how they would do this, but Bigfoot, because Bigfoot, frankly, really surprised me because I kind of had my expectations set pretty low for him in the ride, and on the actual ride, he looks pretty large. Like, he looks larger than he would appear to in videos, I think, at least.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really, not really much foreshadowing. He just appears kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that's a little bit of a problem. Because I feel like the queue does a great job of building up kind of like the naturalistic beauty of the ride, which I think is great because I think the ride does a really good job of making it feel really populated with wildlife, and the queue definitely emphasizes that. But I don't know. I don't think it'd be too hard to slap a couple like blurry photos of Bigfoot in the cabin, or have a concrete map out of what Bigfoot's footprint looks like outside the ride or something like that, or even like a Bigfoot statue or something. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
All right, but yeah, I mean, overall, I just think that Calico River Rapids is a very, very underrated SoCal ride. Like, I think it's up there with the best themed water rides I've ever been on. I mean, it's not on the same level of a Disney or Universal, of course, but I do think it's better than both of Disney's mainline, like stateside river raft rides and Grizzly River Run and Cali River Rapids. I think it's definitely a step above both of those. And like I'm just yelling at Disney right now. I'm like, you see, Disney, you see how easy it is to add a lot of animatronics to an already existing River Rapids ride? It's not that hard, Disney. Grizzly River Run is like almost 20 years old at this point. Not a single animatronic on that ride. I don't think there's any excuse for it anymore. Anyways.
Tired of Halloween parties that really bite? Come to Knott's Halloween Haunt.
Aren't you afraid, Grant?
With dozens of horrifying rides, shows, and attractions.
Scared stiff.
It's the biggest and scariest Halloween party
In the world.
with 11 mind-twisting mazes, monsters, mayhem, and madness. So hurry and get your tickets to Knott's Halloween Haunt before it sells out. They're tickets to die for.
We're going to end out on Not Scary Farm. This won't take too long, but the two mazes from 2019 really, I felt, sold it pretty well in terms of the pre-show.
Yeah, starting with Waxworks.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really love about Waxworks in the pre-show is that they have that really, I don't know how much you caught of this, Jacob, but I definitely caught some of it, is that they have that really cheesy, like, documentary tour of the Wax Museum in its prime going on.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of it was even showing when we showed up early to it. I don't even know if it was up. It was there the second
I think it
time.
was up, but I think we were just so anxious to get into the actual maze that we weren't really paying attention to it.
We're probably more focused on, like the fact that the title is being projected onto it from a projector, or the giant talking skull on the top of it.
I mean, to be fair, the giant talking skull is definitely the most... It's a devil, not a skull, but it's definitely the most impressive part of the queue, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, from what I saw of it did give, like, a brief history. All I got was that, like, this doctor is, like, he's like this famed plastic surgeon and also worked with mannequins. Something tragic happened to his wife, and that seemed to have, like, sent him down the rabbit hole.
And then, of course, every so often, the doctor himself will come out and kind of, like, leer at the guests. We definitely saw him when we arrived there early, I think.
Yep, inviting us in.
And I think that's just really cool, the way they have that all set up. It kind of works three ways. You got the scare actor in the form of the doctor himself. You've got the documentary going on the screens. And then, of course, you've got the talking devil head beckoning you into the maze. I honestly think it might be even a little bit better than Calico.
It definitely beckons you in. I mean,
Calico's pretty damn good as well, so I can't. It's hard to pick between the two.
I mean, this one definitely beckons you in, despite all sane judgments you might have otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
okay.
Come on in. You know you're gonna get scared anyway, so just come on in.
And then finally, we have Origins, the Curse of Calico.
I mean, really, the entire queue for this thing wasn't actually that impressive. It was just like switchbacks, but what really made it was the actor there.
Oh yeah, and the actor, I'm like 99% sure he's the same actor who's the male lead in the Calico Saloon show, because I've seen that show a number of times. I know what that dude looks like. And so it's cool to see him get another role within Scary Farm.
I think it sounded like him too.
Yeah. And basically,
sorry. He even had the same kind of demeanor too.
Yeah. And his whole role within this is that he is kind of just like the head witch hunter.
He's the one. He's the one rallying the crowd to come burn the witch.
And this guy is just one hell of an improver.
And he even got the crowd to even ask the crowd, like, tell us the crimes that Sarah Marshall committed. and then other people like mentioned certain things, and I was like, he's like, oh, well, there's no need for applause, obviously asking for applause.
Oh.
and I was like, no pictures. If you do, make sure to give my good side. And I even responded with, every side's your good side.
And then he responded with like, now you see, this is a man of dignity, folks. I like this man right here. So, I mean, he was just a really good improver because it felt like he had a sharp response for everything.
Yeah, even your response that Sarah Marshall broke Jason Segel's heart. But you respond with, to be fair though, Jason Segel in that movie had terrible taste in women.
Right. Oh God. Yeah, it's
I mean, there was,
to be fair though, Jacob, I do think that because when we got to Origins, the queue wasn't too long. I think we kind of just like walked through the Boot Hill section, and I feel like if you linger in the Boot Hill section, it's probably pretty creepy because there are a couple scare actors out there.
Yeah, I mean, quickness is also a factor here. I mean, we got through that part pretty quickly, and other than that, still there wasn't even really that much of the queue to begin with. I mean, they're basically just waiting that line, listening to the guy rally the crew, which they said, which we just said they got a good guy to do so.
I mean, that guy is fantastic. I'm not saying like I want that guy's job in a sense of like I don't want to take that guy's job away from him because he's super good at it. But I want that guy's job, Jacob. Like when I talk to people about wanting to be a theme park entertainer, that's exactly what I am talking about. That is right up my alley.
I can definitely see that.
All right, so Jacob, I believe that is the home stretch here, my friend. We've had some famous Mrs. Knott's chicken. We've drank some boysenberry punch. I wish I had some boysenberry punch to drink right now because that thing is the nectar of the gods, and I look forward to it every time I come back to Knott's. Any final word on the?
I should have picked up the concentrate.
I've had the concentrate before, and honestly, it's hard to get it to the exact flavor that the boysenberry punch in the park has. It all kind of comes down to the amount of sugar. So, any final word on Knott's, Jacob?
I look forward to attending it again in the future, maybe during another season of Scary Farm. Like maybe I could even just attend multiple nights of Scary Farm in the future.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yep.
I definitely think the next time that you come down to SoCal, I think our main goal should be Magic Mountain multiple days.
And also try and get to California Adventure.
Oh yeah.
Now that won't be for a couple more years, though.
Nope. And next year, we're definitely going to aim for Cedar Point and Kings Island. First time on my end for that.
Be the first time in over a decade for me.
Yep. Right, so Jacob,
Fellow Cedar Fair Park. Sorry, Fellow Cedar Fair Park.
Yeah. It's fine. Next month on Cue the Podcast, we're kind of splitting it up. We're doing 2 creepy episodes and 2 Star Wars episodes. So we're going to start with the Star Wars stuff in the first part of October. We're going to start with Star Tours, which has been kind of a long time coming. That one has been kind of in the works for a while. And then, of course, Jacob, we're going to go to one of my new favorite queues, Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run.
Woo!
Oh my God, I love this queue so much.
Any idea what we're doing? Any idea what we're doing for creepy?
Yeah, for Creepy, we are going to do Haunted Mansion Holiday, and then we are also going to do Monsters After Dark, which is the Halloween overlay of Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout.
Ooh, sounds fun.
Yeah, so a lot lined up there. All right, folks. Well, I certainly hope you've enjoyed this. This is definitely the longest episode of Q, the podcast so far, but I'm not really surprised about that fact, given that, given the fact that this is a whole theme park we're covering. So, thank you all for joining us, and come back again next time, you hear, and enjoy some of our Boys and Berry Punch and sarsaparilla.
Ways of a known and tried and truly guilty witch. All of y'all, I can trust all of y'all as good citizens with strong will and resolve to go in, hunt her down, and bring her to me, so that we may hang her for all to see. Let me hear all of y'all, so I know that y'all are on the same page as me. Chant along with me. Guilty! 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 Guilty!